Hey everybody, it is June 2020 in the middle of the COVID crisis and a week after serious rioting all across America. And I wanted to say something about how recent events illustrate the connection between what is meant by the face of God and shalom and bracha. Throughout Tanakh, these ideas are connected all the time. We see this in Birkat Kohanim. The bracha is that Hashem should shed the light of his face upon you and give you peace. We said in Sim Shalom. These ideas are very tightly connected in the Beit HaMikdash. The Beit HaMikdash is the place where Am Yisrael sees each other face to face. People come from the furthest corners of the country. People who are often isolated in small agricultural places. People come together and see each other face to face. It is where people come to see the face of God. It is a place where there is always room for somebody. No matter how tightly packed the crowd is on Yom Kippur, when it is time to humble yourself before Hashem on Yom Kippur, there is always room. It is a place where there is no stench of death. It's not a place of killing. It's a place of death and rebirth. It's a place of life. It's a place of bracha. Hashem's name is Shalom, and it is a place of Shalom. And to understand why these ideas go together, I think we can turn to current events. Let me step back a moment and give what is maybe a peculiar definition of politics. And I think I'm getting this from Christopher Lasch, the great American historian, who lamented the state of politics in the late 20th century and today. What is politics? Politics is meeting other people face to face to hash out problems and to arrive at solutions. It is a meeting between people who are living a common life together to talk. It is to be face to face. And when I think of the kind of politics I think Lasch admired, I think about I read the beginning of a biography about Calvin Coolidge some time ago. I didn't get through it, but what impressed me is the beginning of the book, where it describes what it was like to live in Vermont in the late 1800s. Calvin Coolidge's father was a farmer. He had a small shop in a small town, Plymouth, Vermont. America was a much smaller place. Vermont, it certainly wasn't even 500,000 people in Vermont at that time. And to be involved in politics was to be involved in local issues. And Calvin Coolidge's father took on all kinds of roles he took on all kinds of public responsibilities. He was a sheriff. He was a justice of the peace. He was superintendent of local schools. He was a tax collector. At some point, he was a representative in the Vermont House of Representatives. He was at one point a state senator. Competent people were involved in addressing needs of local people. Politics was small scale, and it meant conversation, dialogue, hashing things out. Doesn't mean you're not going to be necessarily, there might be yelling, there might be arguing, there might be high emotion, but it's ultimately me dealing with another person and looking that person in the face and trying to figure out how we can move forward. Perhaps this is a romanticization of politics, but I think it's a fair description of what in its best form politics should be. And it's not clear to me that a lot of what we call political activity today is really political. Take a protest. Now, it is the case that a protest may be necessary by a group of people who have been excluded from the conversation. There may be people who are saying, hey, we're here too. We're part of your community. Why aren't you including us? We're here. Respect us. Hear our voices as well. So there certainly is a place for protest to say, I need to be involved. But a protest itself, by this strange definition I've given, is not politics. It is not the conversation itself. It's not the hashing out of local problems. Much of what we call political protest is not political. It is people, it's what has been called political theater. Christopher Lasch described this as political theater. People putting on a show to, it's a monologue It is a preaching to the choir. Now, we hope that what goes on inside our state houses across the country or in Congress is also a conversation. Undoubtedly, conversations are being had all the time. Legislation is being hammered out. There are conversations. There is discussion. But it seems to be that even in our state houses and in Congress, there is a corruption of politics. And I sometimes feel that the Supreme Court has it right, that perhaps the cameras are inappropriate. We like the idea of our democracy being transparent. We want to see what our representatives are up to. But I think it is certainly a danger that instead of addressing their fellow representatives who are sitting in front of them, there's a danger to play for a different audience, address the camera, address the crowd. It's very possible for politics, even in a state house or in Congress, to turn from a conversation to a monologue. And certainly we're all familiar with televised images of senators grandstanding, Congress people grandstanding before the cameras in a committee or even on the floor of Congress. The Supreme Court is interested in keeping the dialogue within the Supreme Court itself. Lawyers and justices should be addressing each other. They should not be playing for cameras. Newspapers, the internet, Twitter, ideally should be places for conversation. And certainly, it's a tool, and like all tools can be used well or badly. There are people who use it well, people who are offering up opinion pieces or editorials. People are contributing to a public conversation about issues. Twitter is a place where you can learn all kinds of profound things. But I fear that in general, certainly Twitter is a place not of conversation. It's a place where people come to scream at each other. It's a place where political hacks come to shout and to preach to the choir, and people largely live in bubbles and are not in conversation with people who are different from them. And this brings us to the issue du jour, the issue of the day, anti-racism. Because I fear that there are many anti-racists who are committing the same sin that they are working against. I believe that racism is just one instance of a more encompassing problem, and that is a failure to treat another person as fully human, seeing only skin deep, judging only surface. I see you only as a black person. I see you only as Republican. Republicans are liars. I see you as a Democrat. Democrats are tyrants. You're part of a union. You're a cop. You're a leftist academic. We have all kinds of labels we can throw at each other. The failure of racism and the failure of many in the anti-racist cause is a failure to address the person face to face, to see other people as fully human, to see other people as B'Tselem Elohim, manifesting an infinity that can never be completely understood. You cannot slap labels on people. That is a great sin. And the consequence of failing to see someone face to face is what we're seeing in the streets. It's violence. If you say that white silence is white violence, not only have you slapped a label on me, do you know who I am? Have you had a conversation with me? You've also justified to yourself why you can do violence to me, and there is violence being done. Failure to see someone face to face, failure to see the infinity in other people, failure to see B'Tselem Elohim, failure to see the face of God manifesting itself in the world means violence and death and chaos and all the terrible things that we've seen in this country in the past week. It's only through seeing the face. It is the face that promises peace. It's the face that promises bracha. Face, shalom, and bracha are tightly woven together. They come together. And this is the bracha you go give your kids. This is what we hope for what comes after us. And I hope that here in America, in our towns, and in the country as a whole, and the world as a whole, we will better look each other face to face so that there is a hope for peace and bracha. I hope you've found this perhaps useful. Thank you for taking the time. I'll see you in the next video.